Today we're talking about America's largest estuary, the Chesapeake Bay. The Chesapeake Bay is extremely unique because it's one of the only estuaries in the United States that has smallmouth. And smallmouth bass require high levels of oxygen, very low levels of salinity, and they require an abundance of bait fish and things like that to survive. Conservation efforts have to be continuously ongoing to keep this at the right level. Volunteer work. It's extremely important. This estuary is extremely important for volunteering efforts, as there's like 64,000 square miles of coverage. So you can imagine the amount of trash, the amount of pollutants and things like that. Next. Why the Chesapeake Bay matters. So we'll first begin with, it is the largest estuary in the United States. It covers 64,000 square miles of water for the watershed. It has an abundance of wildlife when it's healthy. It's a migratory area for birds, waterfowl, things like that. There's so many different fish species from freshwater to saltwater. It's phenomenal. It's also a major area for recreation for like the Washington, D.C. area and everything. There's yachts, there's the Intercoastal Waterway, there's skiers, anything you can think of with water recreation. It also covers Delaware, Maryland, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, and D.C. And like I said earlier, there's 18 million people that directly live around this watershed. So the EPA talks about one of the major negative factors is the amount of pollution that comes into this from farm runoff, from corporations, stormwater runoff, and you can just imagine the kind of chemicals that come down the stormwater. Now this pollution actually creates habitat loss. It destroys submerged aquatic vegetation, which is grasses, different types of grasses. It brings excess nutrients into this, like with pollution and runoff, which helps support all these animal species to live there. However, also makes the water, the water quality not very good. Like it's obviously you're not just going to go out and drink the water running through the watershed. The U.S. Geological Survey talks about sediment clouds. So throughout this ecosystem, there's not a whole lot of riprap banks. A lot of it is like just soil banks. Riprap would be like rocks and wood and stuff that holds material on the bank when there's floodwaters and stuff like that. The sediment clouds directly kill the grasses because they cover them up. It also impacts fish spawning. It impacts animal spawning, things like that. And a lot of this is due to the runoff from the erosion, from not having, rocky banks and things like that. Mm-hmm. It is extremely vital for reproduction for a multitude of species, from birds to fish to raccoons, things like that. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency explains that continued restoration efforts are necessary to improve water quality and to protect the ecosystem. So it's a constant battle. We're never going to get it perfectly clean, and it's always going to be, we're working on it, trying to keep it filtered and everything controlled. So volunteer work. Volunteers help restore the bay. Oyster restoration is very important. Obviously, seafood for that area. Think of all the restaurants that are located in the area. 18 million people, you've got to produce a lot of food to feed those people. The oysters are extremely important because oysters actually filter water at the same time. So it's another filtering agent to help filter out the entire ecosystem. So there's groups that come together, volunteer work, that do cleanups. They pick up trash. One day of cleanup for roughly 10 people can come up with hundreds and hundreds of pounds of trash. The National Fish and Wildlife Foundation's Chesapeake Bay Stewardship Fund highlights the importance of community-based conservation projects that restore habitats and improve watershed health. Some of the things that they do are tree planting. Obviously, we're going to plant trees. It filters out, they filter oxygen in the air, but they also hold sediment to the ground because the roots and everything, it's like grass is growing. Restoration, like we said earlier, is a constant battle. You can go back one. Is a constant battle. The efforts they never stop. It's, what you don't clean up tomorrow or today builds up tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So that's why they're constantly sending groups out there to clean this area up. The oyster reefs have actually come back phenomenally from from the early 2000s when they had the hurricanes and pollutants and stuff. So they spent a lot of time to get those oyster reefs back. Another important thing is the upstream restoration, making sure the streams that these big companies spill their chemicals or pollutants into, even though it's filtered and cleaned, mm-hmm. it's still chemicals and pollutants getting into the water.
Yeah.
So you can go to that. Hold on a second. All right. NOAA fisheries. A healthy habitat will support the full circle of life. Bait supports predators. Grasses support protection of bait. And when you have all these different animals and you have a healthy environment, that is going to support the entire East Coast with seafood and different types of food, with recreation, not just food, but recreation. Mm-hmm. All right, protecting wildlife and communities. So these communities, there's a lot of fishing that goes in these rivers. Like you said, there's like 164 rivers or something that run into this. It's pretty close to that number. And then the blue crabs. Blue crabs are important, obviously. Blue crabs are very finicky in any kind of sediment-heavy water. They can't survive. When there's all kinds of debris, they struggle to swim through the water. Mm-hmm. Another important thing that will help is if we start educating communities about the things they're causing in these estuaries, like pouring your gasoline down a drain, or pouring a chemical that you have at your house down a drain. Right. All that ends up in the bay. Scientists can't do it alone, and really scientists aren't the ones out there doing the boots on the ground work. Mm-hmm. The scientists are the ones that come up with the theories that they think will best, to build the oyster beds to ensure blue crabs survive. Our future generations, like our children and our children's children, it's only going to get worse. Everything's compounding worse and worse daily. So it takes a lot more effort, and it's just really important to the world that we, correct these ecosystems. The NOAA Fisheries explains that the Chesapeake Bay supports important fish and shellfish populations, including species that are valuable both ecologically and economically. All right, you can go to the next one. All right, so when it comes to volunteering, a lot of people say, I do not have time. I don't know enough. My efforts won't matter. Like we said earlier, one person in a whole day can pick up 100 pounds of trash. Just one person. These projects and community stewardship these projects rely on community stewardship and community involvement, which is volunteer work, which is scientists going out there testing the water, which is testing the food sources, making sure everything's healthy. And anyone can help. The smallest actions, like we said, compound. So anything you do today helps for tomorrow. The impact of this, you can see in the picture, you can see teamwork. Everything's built off teamwork. You know what I mean? They're obviously working in conditions that are hazardous. There's chemicals that have been in the sediments forever, but these people are willing to go out because they want good seafood. They want a healthy fishery. They want an area where they can have recreation, where, boating, things like that. The National Fish and Wildlife Foundation emphasizes that partnerships between communities and conservation organizations are essential for successful restoration efforts. This is how it's extremely important that not only these communities, but these communities reaching out to other communities to come to help. Because you figure this seafood from the Chesapeake Bay doesn't just, feed people there. It feeds people probably all over the United States.
Right.
All right, you can go next. All right, call to action. Volunteer. If you want to give back to your community, volunteer. Protection. Protecting these waters are extremely vital as time goes on. If we have fish being, polluting water, we're eating the fish out of polluted water. We're eating fish that have chemicals in them. We're eating, the birds are eating those same fish. So, reshape your children's future. This subject is so important to me because I've spent so much time fishing and on the water doing these things. I've seen all the dead animals. I've seen what the Asian carp population have done. That's 5 minutes? 10, right? And the Chesapeake Bay was shaped over thousands of years by nature, but its future will be shaped by the choices we make today. One person, one cleanup, and 1 hour of service can become a part of restoring one of America's greatest ecosystems. Restore, protect, volunteer, take action, protect our future. Any questions?
Very good.